Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to tie an ant pattern, and it's my improved CDC Ant. I will tell you why I call it improved, and I'll point out to a couple of new techniques I've learned recently. They're very basic. It's about dubbing, how to dub properly and how to whip finish properly. Even though I tie for quite a while, I didn't know this before. Many of you probably know, but I think it's good to point out these things. Now, I'll start with a hook. Hook is the MCO 2487BL. The reason why I'm using BL is because of the fish, of course, and the reason why I'm using this particular model is because it's curved. Ants, when they fall on the water, they die, and then they bend as they die. The thread I'm using is 10/0, and I'll start this thread like so. I'll cover body. It lays flat, so you need a flat thread for this. Just cut it. Some people can use scissors at the same time as they wind the thread, but I am just afraid I'm gonna poke my eye out. So leave your thread here. Now let's talk about dubbing. The dubbing I'm using is Swiss CDC, and CDC dubbing makes 33 black. Two things I don't like about it. Let's go through the dubbing, I'll show you. It has those pieces of feather left inside, even the stem, and that's what I don't like. I also don't like when you rub your fingers into it, it leaves a black residue, so the color is not stable. The third thing I don't like is the price here in China, because it was around $12 for a pack. I think that's too much for dubbing. Anyway, the rule of dubbing is as you wind your thread around the hook, you introduce, with each wrap, you introduce one twist in your thread. So if you dub anti-clockwise, you'll actually undub your dubbing as you wind your thread. If you dub it clockwise, you'll actually tighten the dubbing as you wind your thread onto the hook. So with that being pointed out, let's start dubbing. You want to dub rather thin noodle, because I want to go in a couple of layers and form the abdomen. Abdomen is probably the most prominent part of the ant, and it has to be the trigger point, because it's very, very visible, and that's what fish are after. They need some trigger points when they're looking for the food, so they look for key triggers in their food, and that's probably how they actually decide what to eat and what not to eat. So I want to emphasize a little bit abdomen, so I'll make it a little bit thicker maybe compared to the natural, but then again, it's all about what fish say about your fly, so you have to try and see whether it works or not for you. I tested this fly many times, and it proved to be a very effective one, and the fish are actually crazy about it. So after you finish dubbing your abdomen, go with your thread forward, and now it's time to add another key trigger point here. I think it's trigger point. It's wings. Well, shine to the wings. So I like to use this pearl tinsel in let's say, I think it's some kind of purple color. So I'll just twist my bobbin counterclockwise, and then I'll fold this again, and with 2 turns I got my V-shaped wings. Now you can keep it here like so. I'll tighten it a little bit more. Okay, in front of it to lock it. Now it won't spin around. On the website globalflyfisher.com you will find excellent article by Hans Billerman, and it's about CDC Feather Anatomy, and this is referred as a type 1 feather, CDC feather. It has almost all barbels even, and that's very good because like when you pull them like together, you'll use most of your feather. The reason why I'm using just one feather for this fly is because I want to fish it in 2 different ways, and that's as a dry and as a wet. I'll explain about it later. Now place your feather like this, stroke all those fibers, catch as many as you can, and place it on the top of the hook shank, exceeding hook bend by a little. Like, that's up to you how much you will exceed. So again, I'll spin counterclockwise. I'll do pinch and wrap and pull upwards, and I'll add another wrap. Try not to do wrap on the top of each other, rather next to each other. It will improve the strength of the thread pressure over your material. Now I'll just cut out what I don't need by an angle, and now you can actually cover these with your thread, and catching butts will improve the tension that your thread is creating over the wings. Now the last part is to add thorax, and thorax has legs, so instead of dubbing tight noodle and thin one, you want to do quite the opposite. You want to make a loose one and a relatively thick one. So what I do is like, I just do like this. I don't press on my dubbing firmly, so I take just nice sparse piece of dubbing, press it against the thread, and do a short motion, which leaves me with hairs pointing out. Now take everything, wings and underwings together, and now tightly wrap around. Now do the same but from the opposite side. I like to do it like once and then twice. Keep those things splayed together and then go towards the head. Try to leave enough room for the whip finish, and that's it. It's important that your hook is covered with thread before you do a whip finish, because the way how you're supposed to do whip finish is not how I did it. It's by placing thread wraps, one here, the next one is towards the hook eye, and the next one is towards the hook eye. They are not overlapping each other. The thread has to be flat, and when you tighten the knot, you don't go opposite to you like I did before, you go towards the hook band. So with that being noted, let's do the whip finish. So the first wrap should be near the bend like this, and the next one and next one, and then tighten the knot. It's broken, hope it's going to be tight. Okay, I broke it, I guess. 10/0 thread didn't hold on. Now I want to do is I want to brush my fly to suggest those legs a little bit more, and if I catch with my Velcro the knot, if it's not tight, it will actually unwind at this point. So this is it. So you're suggesting legs, as you can see, and ants, they do have those legs that are quite obvious. Cut the shiny part, it's the crystal flesh or whatever you got, cut it a little bit longer than CDC, and that's the finished fly. Now, as I said, I have 2 ways of fishing this fly. One of them is being dry fly, and that's quite obvious, straightforward how the way to fish. So what you do, just cast above the fish, like upstream from the fish, wait for the fish to rise, and that's it. What I would suggest is to use thin tippet, like as thin as you can go away with, like it's connected with the size of the fish in your river. I like to use like 5 or 6x, even thinner for small flies, up to, well, down to 8x. The second, less known way, but very effective way, is to fish it as wet, and that's the reason why I use just one feather. I want to be able to pull it down under the surface easier. So sometimes, because I fish more or less still water, it's mostly visual, it's mostly sight fishing. So when I see the fish, I try to cast this line next to the fish. If it doesn't react to a fly that's floating, I strip the fly under the surface, or prior to casting I wet the fly in the water and I roll cast to the fish, because I don't want to do the false casting which will dry the fly. So when the fly bumps next to the fish, you just strip it or make it sink somehow, whatever you want. And when the fly starts to sink, if the fish doesn't react on that dead drift sink, then you can start pulling it. It's not natural for an ant to dive and swim under the water, but fish, they react to it. But usually they will just come, see, maybe circle around it. That's what happens to me most often. They circle around the fly as it sinks, and they just come again and they take it. The take is very obvious, and that's what I like about it. It's very visual, it's very exciting, and I love to fish for a fish that I can see. So guys, I hope you learned something new. I hope you find this video useful. If you did, please consider subscribing and share this video, comment, do whatever you please, and I'd be more than happy to answer any of your questions if you have any. So until next week, keep safe and cheers.